This story invites you on a slow-paced, gloomy, and ironic journey through the real everyday life of a medieval count. Forget about romantic castles and nobility. You will see a world of filth, disease, constant hunger, and endless suffering. Each new day here is not a gift of fate, but just another step towards slow and inevitable decay. Through detailed descriptions of small and unbearable hardships, you'll understand that behind the grand title lies only a meaningless, exhausting existence, where even survival becomes an act of heroism. But before you settle in comfortably, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there right now. It's always fascinating to see who's joined us. Now, get comfortable. We're about to begin. You wake up not with the dignity of a noble lord, but with the cracked spine of a man who has spent the night wrestling with lice and the coarse edges of straw. The bed you sleep on, if the term can be applied at all, is a crude frame packed with stale hay, flattened by years of sweat, urine, and the occasional rat corpse. Your back itches before your eyes open, and you suspect that something in the mattress is still alive and probably hungry. The first thing you do every morning is scratch. The ceiling above you drips. That is not metaphor. Cold beads of condensation gather on the mossy stones overhead, collecting all night before making their mournful descent onto your brow. It is how you know morning has come. There is no light here, only wetness and time. Your chamber is large, but not in a luxurious sense. Large the way a crypt is large. The stone walls breathe dampness. The air is a stew of mildew, ash, and the residual fart of every servant, squire, and dying relative who has ever passed through. There is no fireplace. The last one smoked too much and nearly asphyxiated your predecessor, so now the hearth is stuffed with dung and forgotten. You sit up. This takes effort because your joints crack like green wood in a fire. Your nightshirt, if you can call it that, is a woolen tunic stained yellow and stiff in unfortunate places. It hasn't been washed in a fortnight, nor have you. The basin in the corner of the room contains water from an earlier era. The surface hosts a thin film that shimmers with all the colors of an oil slick. You splash your face in it anyway. It is either that or smell yourself. Your chamber pot sits under the bed. It is full. You are not sure whose waist fills it anymore. The servant may have emptied it last week, or not. One of the dogs has taken to sleeping beside it. You are not certain why, but you respect his choices. Once your feet find the rush-covered floor, you begin the morning ritual, stepping over a half-dead squire, kicking away a rat, and trying not to scream as your bare soul grazes something wet. Sometimes it is blood. Sometimes it is just soup. Neither makes you feel particularly noble. Dressing is neither pleasant nor brief. Your hose cling to your legs like cold tongues. One has a hole in it, big enough for your toe to wave through. Your doublet smells like smoked meat and rotting wool. You wonder, not for the first time, if anyone has ever died simply from the weight of their own garments. Your belt buckle rusted sometime last month, so you fasten it with string. The string belonged to a dead monk. You know this because his name is embroidered on it, Brother Fairman. Once clothed, again, a generous term, you stumble into the antechamber where two retainers are already waiting. They do not greet you. One is asleep, the other may be dead. You nudge the second with your boot. He groans, still alive. You nod. Good enough. Breakfast is served downstairs. Served means that a slab of blackened bread and a bowl of stew have been left on a bench. The stew is cold. The bread is not quite bread. It is something older, something harder, something more philosophical than edible. You chew anyway. The stew tastes like onion, meat, and regret. You hope it is pig. You strongly suspect it is not. Across the table, your steward reads from a scroll. He is already sweating. He always sweats. His forehead shines like wet parchment. 3 more peasants died in the lower village, he mutters. One from fever, one from wolves, and one from an accident with a plow. What sort of accident, you ask, though you do not care? He was the plow. You nod. Of course he was. The steward continues. Bandits in the east, mold in the wheat stores, lice in the nursery, a strange illness among the pigs. You sip what passes for wine. It burns. That is not a metaphor either. It literally burns. There is something in it that may be vinegar or poison or perhaps just old rat urine. At this point, you can no longer distinguish. You are reminded that today is the day you must hold court. Peasants will bring grievances, vassals will demand favors. Someone will weep, someone will bleed, someone will mention taxes, and you will pretend to care. You sigh and stand. Outside the hall, the air is not much better. The inner yard is a slurry of mud, manure, and something that bubbles ominously. Pigs and children wallow in the same puddles. A nun is chasing a goose. The goose is winning. You walk toward the great hall. The stones beneath your boots are slick with moss. A drunkard snores in the shade. He wears your colors. You do not know his name. You are not sure he is one of yours, but the tunic fits, so you let it go. Your dog limps beside you. He has 3 legs. He has also outlived 3 of your wives. You trust him more than most men. Inside the hall, a fire smolders fitfully. Smoke gathers near the ceiling, waiting to descend like an omen. Your seat, an oaken chair carved with leering gargoyles, awaits. You sink into it. The wood groans under your weight. Or maybe you groan. A trumpet sounds. Not a good trumpet, a sick trumpet. The kind of trumpet that might herald the arrival of a very lazy demon. The doors open, and so begins the day. A peasant shuffles forward. He smells of wet wool and desperation. Behind him, more weight. All carry something. A piglet, a bag of grain, a broken child. One holds what might be a severed foot. You are a noble. You are a ruler. You are a beacon of power in a world of chaos. And you are so very tired. You sit on your throne-like chair, carefully ignoring the splinter that has embedded itself into your thigh. Around you, A cacophony of coughs, mutterings, and nervous foot shuffling provides a discordant background for the day's business. The hall is dimly lit, even though it's midday. Windows here are few, narrow, and clogged with grime and pigeon droppings. Sunlight struggles through cracks, creating pale stripes that illuminate the floating dust motes. Your steward steps forward again, sweating more heavily now. His tunic clings to him as though ashamed. First petitioner, he announces weakly, already exhausted. Before you is a man so thin you can count his ribs through his filthy shirt. His feet are caked with dirt, and he has the hunted look common to those who spend their entire lives close to starvation. He bows deeply, too deeply, his body visibly trembling, but not out of reverence. Fear or fever, you suspect, probably both. Speak, you command, your voice flat with practiced authority. My lord, the peasant begins shakily, I have been robbed. Of what? My pig, sir. It was my only pig. Someone took it in the night. You rub your temple with a grimy hand, feeling the texture of dried sweat and dirt beneath your fingertips. You are acutely aware of how you must appear, unwashed, weary, and utterly bored. To this peasant, however, you might as well be God Himself, distant, indifferent, and cruelly powerful. You think I have your pig? No, Lord, he stammers quickly. I only ask for justice. Justice. The word is strange in your mouth. Justice here usually means someone loses a hand, an ear, or occasionally their head. Mostly, it means someone owes you more grain. Find his pig, you instruct your steward. The steward sighs audibly. He already knows no pig will be found. Pigs vanish often, and when found, are usually found eaten. Next petitioner, a woman drags forward a child whose arm hangs limp and swollen. The child is silent, eyes wide and fever bright. You suspect the arm is broken. Explain, you demand less patiently this time. A horse kicked him, my lord, the woman whispers. Your horse. You pause. This is inconvenient. Nobility requires at least the appearance of generosity. The peasants watch intently, waiting to see how you will handle their misery today. Give them grain, you mutter to your steward. He winces visibly, already calculating how much grain is left. Not much, you both know, but better grain now than rebellion tomorrow. The next petitioner is a man so ancient he looks as if he has already died and simply forgotten to lie down. His eyes are milky with cataracts, his teeth long gone, replaced by gums blackened by disease. My son is dead, he wheezes without introduction. We cannot afford burial fees. The priest will not bury him without your permission. You wave a hand irritably. Bury him. He must have proper rites. Tell the priest I command it. You interrupt harshly. You know the priest will ignore you. The clergy always do. They bury those they choose, and they charge whatever they want. You, despite your title, have little say in matters of the soul. Still, the peasants must see you make the effort. You must appear in control, even as everything slips through your fingers like sand. More petitioners, they blur together, stolen hens, broken tools, wives who ran away, husbands who drank too much, a never ending litany of misery, filth, and despair. You listen, half attentive, acutely conscious of your own discomfort. Your backside aches from sitting. Your feet itch inside your damp boots. Your tunic scratches your neck. Yet, your discomfort is luxurious compared to the peasants. At midday, you pause. Lunch is brought. A trencher of stale bread, topped with something vaguely meat like. You pick at it gingerly. You have learned caution over the years. Last week, you bit into something that should not have crunched bones, dirt, or insects. You never investigated further. Ignorance is preferable. As you eat, the court watches silently, hungrily. Their sunken eyes follow each morsel, knowing that even your scraps are richer fare than they will taste this week. You eat slowly, not out of cruelty, but because your teeth ache. There are gaps where decay claimed its victory. Your breath smells perpetually sour. Your gums bleed freely whenever food is too tough. Today, mercifully, Cicely, the meat is soft. The steward returns, clearing his throat delicately. Bandits again, my lord, he whispers urgently. 3 merchants robbed on the east road. You swallow a mouthful of gristle. Send soldiers. We have only 6 able-bodied men. 2 have dysentery. You sigh deeply, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing upon your shoulders. This is the truth of your nobility. Each day, fewer resources, fewer soldiers, fewer peasants able to till fields or fight. Your title counts for little when your subjects starve or die from disease. Send whoever can walk, you order finally, waving him away. He bows, resigning himself to inevitable failure. The hall fills again with murmurs, coughs, and the scuffling of tired feet. Your bones ache. Your clothing clings damply to your skin. Your personal odor mingles indistinguishably with that of the peasants. Your noble status does not elevate you above filth. It merely gives you the privilege of being filthy in finer clothes. A messenger enters, young and flushed from riding hard. He kneels, gasping for breath. Lord, the bishop sends his regards. He demands payment for the last tithe. He also requests additional grain for the monastery. You suppress a snarl. The church always wants more, always demands with one hand while holding salvation in the other. You have no choice but compliance. Give him half of whatever remains. Half, your steward whispers hoarsely. We will have nothing left. Better nothing today than eternal damnation tomorrow, you reply bitterly. As the afternoon wears on, your judgment grows increasingly curt. You dismiss petitioners abruptly, not from cruelty, but exhaustion. Each decision costs you something intangible, draining your humanity a little further. Finally, the last peasant leaves the hall, clutching a piece of moldy bread like a relic. The room empties, leaving you alone except for your steward, who stands hunched, defeated. My lord, he murmurs hesitantly, will you bathe this year? You look down at your hands, covered in grime, dirt under your nails, embedded deep into the cracks of your skin, as permanent as tattoos. You consider bathing briefly, but shiver involuntarily. Bathing means cold water, chill drafts, and possibly pneumonia. You decide against it. Next year, you mutter wearily. Perhaps. You rise stiffly from your chair, bones cracking audibly. Tomorrow will bring more complaints, more pleas for aid, more miserable reminders of your impotence. But today, your duty is done. As you leave the hall, passing through a courtyard thick with mud and manure, you catch your reflection briefly in a puddle, haggard, dirty, weary beyond measure. You are a count. You hold land, power, and authority over men. Yet in this moment, you realize with bitter clarity, you smell exactly like the peasants you rule, and you suspect you always will. Evening comes, and with it, the greatest ordeal of your noble day, dinner. It is not the kind of dinner one imagines from heroic ballads filled with hearty laughter, succulent meats, and foaming tankards. Instead, your evening meal is a grim test of endurance, a hazardous blend of luxury and poison, indulgence and suffering. You approach the great hall reluctantly. Inside, torches flicker weakly, casting grotesque shadows along damp, soot blackened walls. The long wooden table, scarred by knives and decades of spilled drink, awaits you. Your knights, retainers, and visiting dignitaries already occupy their seats, each face reflecting the exhaustion and tension of daily survival rather than joy at the coming feast. As you take your seat at the table's head, the room quiets, a grudging acknowledgement of your authority. The silence lasts only until the food arrives. Then begins a cacophony of chewing, slurping, and occasional gagging sounds, punctuated by belches so deep and resonant they nearly shake the wooden beams. Tonight's menu features roast meats in deceptive abundance. A large platter, draped with something that looks vaguely like pork, is placed before you. It smells questionable, and you can't help but wonder how long the animal had been dead before cooking commenced. Your cook is either deeply inept or creatively malicious, likely both. Next to the pork, a smaller dish contains a stew so thick and congealed it appears more sculptural than culinary. Bits of unidentifiable vegetables and chunks of meat float lethargically, suspended in a greasy, brownish paste. You have learned not to question the origins of such meals. Doing so only spoils your already shaky appetite. As tradition demands, you tear a chunk of bread, hard as stone, spotted with patches of greenish mold, and dip it bravely into the stew. The texture on your tongue is unsettlingly gelatinous. You chew deliberately, aware that your teeth are protesting each bite. The flavor, unsurprisingly, is indistinct, a confusing combination of sourness, salt, and an underlying hint of rot. You swallow quickly, hoping the stew's consistency masks whatever spoilage lurks beneath. Your knights dig in with less caution, some scooping stew directly into their mouths with bare, filthy fingers. No one has utensils, knives or tools, but forks are an unknown luxury. The table itself becomes an extension of the meal, sauces soaking into the wood, scraps falling between cracks, quickly claimed by rats scuttling beneath your feet. You turn your attention reluctantly back to the pork. Cutting into it requires effort. The meat fights back, leathery and resilient, resistant to your blunt knife. Eventually, you tear off a chunk with your fingers, grease dripping between your knuckles, mingling with dirt ingrained under your nails. You place the meat gingerly in your mouth and chew. It tastes rank, gamey, and suspiciously aged. Around you, conversation turns toward mundane brutality. Discussions of livestock illnesses, peasant rebellions, and the latest criminal executions. Your mind wanders, avoiding the taste of decay filling your mouth. Beside you sits Sir Roland, your captain at arms, his face flushed from ale, bits of stew clinging stubbornly to his beard. He belches mightily before whispering conspiratorially, "This pork tastes off." You nod slowly, trying to ignore the cold sweat breaking along your spine. It always does. Sir Roland shrugs and continues in eating anyway. There are few alternatives. Wine arrives in large pitchers, murky red liquid splashing onto the table as it's poured hastily into dented metal cups. The smell is sharp, acidic, and unmistakably fermented past any reasonable stage. Still, you raise your cup in a toast, swallowing a large gulp quickly to minimize tasting it. It burns viciously, acid biting at the back of your throat, igniting a familiar nausea in your stomach. You set the cup down heavily, eyes watering. Beside you, a knight coughs violently, spraying flecks of wine and stew across the table. Nobody flinches or comments. This is commonplace, just another small indignity in a long series. As the evening drags on, dishes continue to circulate, smaller platters of roasted pigeons, bones brittle, meat dry, bowls of pickled fish, whose aroma suggests preservation through desperation rather than skill, and slices of cheese so pungent that their smell alone induces dizziness. You force down tiny bites, aware that too much indulgence tonight will guarantee misery tomorrow. At the far end of the table, your priest eats serenely, seemingly immune to the culinary horrors. He nibbles delicately at bread, sipping his wine as though tasting something divine. You envy his serenity, knowing it arises not from sanctity, but from carefully cultivated ignorance. The knight opposite you suddenly pales, clutching his stomach, his eyes wide. He stumbles away from the table, staggering toward the doors, disappearing into the darkness beyond, to vomit loudly into the courtyard. Others pause briefly, then return to their meals, undeterred. Such events are expected, routine hazards of dinner at your table. A servant quietly removes the empty stew pot, revealing the bottom coated in a slimy residue that glistens ominously in torchlight. You avert your eyes. Some truths are better left unseen. The meal concludes, mercifully, with sweetened fruits, mostly shriveled, wrinkled apples swimming in thick honey. The honey masks their sourness, though just a barely. You chew with resignation, aware your stomach has become a battleground of competing poisons. Your steward leans over discreetly, whispering, "Cook says the pork came from a diseased animal. Apologies, my lord." You wave him away wearily. The apology is meaningless, too late, and too typical. You've become accustomed to meals carrying inherent risk, where every bite feels like gambling with death. There is no surprise left, only exhaustion. The hall slowly empties as knights and retainers stumble off drunkenly, many clutching their bellies, groaning softly. You remain seated alone, staring blankly at the devastation of the meal, the scattered bones, pools of spilled wine, and greasy stains marking another day of barely surviving your own hospitality. Your stomach churns uneasily, protesting its mistreatment, and you wonder, not for the first time, how many more dinners like this your body can endure. You're reminded of your father, who famously died clutching his chest midway through a roasted duck that proved fatal. Such thoughts do little for your digestion. Rising stiffly from your seat, you feel the dizziness that accompanies questionable pork and foul wine. Your stomach clenches painfully. You consider briefly whether vomiting might be preferable, but dismiss the idea. Dignity demands you hold it down, despite your body's urgent protests. Outside the hall, night air greets you, cold, damp, and oppressive. Your footsteps echo across the filthy stone courtyard. Behind you, servants clear away remnants of the feast, tossing scraps into the yard where stray dogs fight viciously over spoiled meat and half chewed bones. Even animals know better than to fully trust your food. You ascend the stairs toward your chamber, each step requiring greater effort as nausea intensifies. Your breath comes shallowly, flavored with sour wine and worse pork. You know sleep tonight will be fitful, interrupted by visions of spoiled food, writhing stomach pains, and fears of illness lurking silently inside you. Yet you continue onward, resigned. Tomorrow, another feast awaits, equally perilous, equally foul. You reach your chamber, collapsing heavily onto your bed of straw and parasites. Lying there, staring blankly at the dark ceiling, you whisper a bitter, half hearted prayer for deliverance from pork, from stew, from wine, from the entire cycle of miserable dinners that constitute your noble life. But even as you pray, you know the truth. Your dinner table is as dangerous as any battlefield, and you are never safe. Night falls fully now, descending upon your castle like a thick, suffocating blanket. Darkness does not bring rest. Instead, it heralds a different, quieter torment. You lie upon your bed, a misshapen lump of straw and filth, and wait for sleep to take you, knowing full well that it will offer no peace. Sleep in your world is never a refuge, only a temporary oblivion. Your stomach protests loudly, waging war against the spoiled pork and acidic wine of dinner. A burning sensation crawls up your throat, acidic and bitter. You close your eyes, praying the nausea will fade. But prayers are useless. God has long ceased to listen, or perhaps he never did. Around you, the chamber groans softly. Wood settles, stone whispers, rodents scuttle furtively in the shadows. The night sounds magnify your awareness of your body's countless discomforts. Sweat beads along your forehead, dribbling slowly down your temples. The mattress beneath you is uneven, packed irregularly with straw. Sharp stems prod your flesh, through the coarse linen sheets, jabbing sharply like needles. Each tiny pain, another reminder that comfort is a cruel myth. You turn restlessly, and a new wave of discomfort surges. Your tunic clings damply to your skin, irritating your already raw flesh. You scratch instinctively, fingernails catching roughly against scabs formed from previous night's desperate clawing. Lice stir and resume their slow, determined march across your back and limbs. Tiny feet crawl deliberately, seeking soft, warm places to bite. Every night they feast on you, your noble blood as delicious to parasites as peasant blood. They do not discriminate. A sudden sharp pinch makes you flinch. Bedbugs, relentless, invisible adversaries, begin their nightly banquet. You swat uselessly at your flesh, trying to dislodge the attackers, knowing your efforts are futile. They feed, unnoticed until their bites become inflamed, itchy welts, forming painful constellations across your skin. Each morning you awaken marked anew, your body mapping each night's misery. As you lie awake, eyes fixed blankly on the darkness above, a familiar scratching sound draws your attention. Rats, emboldened by darkness and hunger, scamper boldly across the chamber floor. Occasionally, their tails brush audibly against stone, producing faint, shuffling whispers. You have grown used to their presence, yet tonight something feels different, closer, bolder. You shift your legs, startling one creature from your bedside. It darts away with a frantic squeal. You shudder, imagining tiny claws scuttling over your sheets, whiskers twitching near your face. Once you awoke to find a rat gnawing your fingernail. The memory haunts you, adding another grim chapter to the never ending catalog of nighttime horrors. Sleep eludes you still, its absence more torturous than the troubled dreams you usually endure. Insomnia sharpens your senses unbearably, magnifying every ache, every itch, every sound. A cough echoes somewhere beyond your door, a servant, perhaps, or someone sicker, weaker, dying quietly in the shadows. Death is no stranger here. It lurks around every corner, waiting patiently. You sit up briefly, desperate to relieve the stiffness of your joints. Bones creak loudly as you move, your body protesting its nightly torment. The room spins slightly, dizziness mingling with nausea. For a moment, you consider rising fully, pacing the chamber to distract yourself, but the floor offers no safer haven. Rats and fleas rule there too. Resigned, you lie back down, sinking into your straw mattress, surrendering once more to suffering. Suddenly, sharp pain erupts along your leg, deeper than before. Something has bitten you. You jolt upright, hands frantically exploring the wound. Blood smears warm against your fingertips. A rat has grown brave enough to taste your flesh. Panic surges through your veins, pulse quickening, breath coming in shallow gasps. Your heart pounds in the suffocating darkness. You strain your ears, desperately listening for movement. There, another faint rustle, disturbingly close. You shout, waving your arms wildly in a futile attempt to scare off unseen threats. Silence returns momentarily before the rustling resumes. Tonight, you are prey, lord of the castle reduced to little more than a helpless meal for vermin. Exhausted, you collapse again onto the filthy bedding. Anxiety drains what little strength remains in you. The rat's bite throbs insistently, aching and stinging in rhythm with your heartbeat. In the morning, infection will likely follow, swelling, redness, possibly fever. Another ailment to endure, another battle for your weary body. Hours pass slowly, each minute lengthened by torment. Sleep finally finds you, but it brings nightmares, dreams of illness, pestilence, decay, visions of rats gnawing flesh from your bones, lice burrowing beneath your skin, bed bugs emerging in writhing swarms from your bedding. You jerk awake repeatedly, sweat soaked, disoriented, pulse racing from terror. Outside, night slowly retreats. Faint gray light filters through the grime covered window, signaling dawn's grudging arrival. You open your eyes wearily, realizing you have survived another night, though survival offers little comfort. Morning means facing the horrors anew. You sit upright stiffly, examining the night's damage. Red welts from insects mark your flesh vividly, fresh bites overlaying old scars. Your leg wound is swollen and angry, confirming fears of infection. Fatigue dulls your senses, leaving you sluggish, heavy with despair. Outside your chamber, servants stir slowly, preparing another miserable breakfast, stoking fires, gathering water. Life resumes, such as it is. You swing legs over the side of the bed, placing feet gingerly upon the cold, filthy stones. Rats have scattered, retreating temporarily from daylight. They will return tonight, you know. They always do. You rise shakily, muscles trembling with exhaustion, head swimming slightly from residual nausea. The chamber pot nearby reeks horribly, overflowing during the night. You look away quickly, stomach churning once more. There will be no rest today, no relief, only continued endurance. Another long, painful passage toward nightfall. Your thoughts drift briefly toward prayer, begging silently for relief, reprieve, some small mercy. But prayer, you recall bitterly, is wasted breath. God has abandoned this place long ago, if he ever truly cared at all. Stepping forward slowly, you brace yourself against the wall, inhaling stale air deeply, gathering strength for the day's burdens. Outside your window, gray skies promise rain, cold dampness settling over the castle once more. Another layer of discomfort, another enemy to contend with. You are a count, master of lands, ruler of men. Yet at night, your title becomes meaningless. Darkness strips away nobility, revealing the vulnerable, fragile creature beneath. Each night you suffer, each night you endure countless tiny torments, vermin, parasites, nightmares, disease, and then every morning you awaken wondering how much longer you can survive, how many more nights your exhausted body can withstand being slowly, methodically devoured. Yet you carry on, driven by obligation, pride, desperation, whatever impulse compels survival, despite relentless misery. You straighten your filthy tunic, brush away lice clinging stubbornly to your sleeves, and step toward your chamber door, prepared to face daylight's challenges, aware that tonight will bring it all again: the lice, rats, bedbugs, nightmares. You will lie awake once more, trapped helplessly in darkness, knowing the truth no one else dares speak. Each night, in your sleep, you are quietly, mercilessly devoured, piece by piece, by the unseen horrors that infest your world. And every morning, less of you remains. Morning breaks bitterly, pale and gray, as you stumble forth from your chamber to face another grim cycle of existence. Your body protests each movement. Pain echoes through your joints, your infected leg wound throbbing insistently beneath your filthy clothing. The bite from last night's rat has festered already, adding yet another ache to your endless catalog of suffering. Outside, rain drizzles ceaselessly, soaking the stone walls of your decaying castle. Moisture seeps into every crevice, rendering your fortress cold and inhospitable. Servants shuffle through muddy courtyards, feet dragging with weary resignation. Their hollow eyes reflect the same relentless exhaustion that plagues your every step. In the main hall, your steward greets you solemnly, his expression more strained than usual. "My lord," he whispers hesitantly, voice cracking slightly, "I must inform you that the granary is nearly empty. Our grain stores are exhausted. We have perhaps 2 days of bread remaining." You sigh deeply, closing your eyes briefly against the wave of despair his words provoke. Food shortages are nothing new. They occur regularly, each instance more severe than the last. Yet each new crisis leaves you weaker, more vulnerable, less capable of addressing the suffering of your people, let alone your own. What options remain? You ask quietly, already anticipating the bleak answer. "None, my lord." Your steward replies softly. "We have exhausted all sources. Your people starve, and we can offer them nothing. The bishop still demands his tithes. The knights still require their payments. And you," he trails off, unwilling or unable to finish. You know the unspoken truth well enough. Your own condition steadily worsens. Your health deteriorates daily, ravaged by years of poor food, unsanitary living conditions, disease, and parasites. Each morning brings fresh agony, new pains layering upon old miseries. Each evening steals more of your strength, leaving you increasingly diminished. Outside your castle walls, desperation breeds unrest. Peasants gather quietly, murmuring darkly, their sullen eyes watching your keep resentfully. Starvation and disease have driven them to despair. Rumors of rebellion ripple quietly, whispered warnings reaching your ears more frequently now. You know rebellion could erupt at any moment, triggered by hunger or anger or some small injustice, a final straw breaking beneath the burden of their suffering. You cannot blame them, not truly. Their misery mirrors your own, though they would never believe such a truth. To them, you remain the distant lord, cruelly indifferent, untouched by hardship. Yet your life is as miserable as theirs, each day a constant struggle simply to remain standing. Later that morning, word arrives that another village has succumbed to plague. The messenger's face is ashen, fear evident in his trembling voice. The sickness spreads quickly, my lord. Bodies fill the streets. The survivors are fleeing, but where can they go? You offer no answer, for you have none. Plague has stalked your lands relentlessly, leaving death and ruin in its wake. Each outbreak leaves fewer subjects, fewer workers, fewer souls to till fields or fight battles. And with each death, you feel your domain shrink further, your power, your resources, your very reason for existing eroding slowly, inevitably. By afternoon, the cold drizzle deepens into a steady downpour. Water streams through holes in roofs, drenching halls and chambers, pooling beneath your feet. You walk carefully, aware of how easily you might slip and break bones already brittle from years of neglect. Your infected wound aches constantly, fever steadily rising. You feel heat radiating beneath clammy skin, a grim sign of worsening infection. Your steward approaches again, face pale and stricken. The knights, he whispers urgently, glancing around nervously. They demand immediate payment. They threaten revolt. Payment with what? You snap, voice harsh with frustration. We have nothing left. He merely shakes his head helplessly, retreating quietly into shadows. You sink wearily onto a damp stone bench, burying your face briefly in filthy hands. Everything collapses around you: finances, food, health, loyalty. Your power is a hollow illusion, your authority meaningless when starvation, disease, and desperation reign supreme. Night comes mercifully, cloaking the castle once again in darkness. You sit alone in your chamber, exhausted beyond measure. Rain drums incessantly against cracked stone walls, forming rhythmic patterns of despair. Each drop echoes your growing hopelessness. Your body trembles slightly from fever, now fully upon you, the infected wound throbbing relentlessly. Sweat pours from your brow, chilling instantly against damp air. You consider briefly calling for a physician, but quickly abandon the thought. Your physician died weeks ago, another victim of plague and inadequate care. You remain utterly alone, abandoned by fortune and health alike. As darkness thickens, you reflect bitterly upon your noble status, once envied, now seemingly a cruel joke. You are a count, yet your existence is reduced to perpetual misery, constant agony, slow decay. You rule only ruins, oversee a realm defined by suffering, loss, and death. Your days consist solely of survival, endless endurance without purpose or hope. Outside your chamber, rats and lice prepare once more to claim your flesh, their nightly feast inevitable. You lack the strength even to fight them now. Resigned, you lie upon filthy bedding, staring blankly upward at darkness, aware your final days approach swiftly. You wonder idly who will mourn your passing. Certainly not your peasants. They will celebrate, if anything, reveling briefly before plunging back into misery. Knights and retainers will quarrel fiercely over whatever scraps of wealth or power remain. The bishop will pray piously over your corpse, demanding payment even then. In the end, you realize bleakly, no one truly cares about your fate. You are merely another doomed figure among countless others, each suffering silently, invisibly, until death finally grants release. You close your eyes slowly, fever dreams already swirling wildly within your mind. Sleep comes quickly this night, aided by exhaustion, illness, and utter despair. Visions torment you relentlessly. Images of plague victims rotting openly in streets, starving peasants rising in bloody revolt, your own corpse gnawed eagerly by rats. Yet beneath nightmares, a strange calmness emerges, a quiet, resigned acceptance. Your end approaches inevitably, death lingering patiently just beyond sight. You welcome it finally, understanding that true nobility lies not in power or riches, but simply in enduring suffering quietly, persistently, until released from torment. Morning finds your chamber silent. Servants enter cautiously, discovering your still form upon straw bedding. They whisper briefly among themselves, uncertain whether you still breathe. Eventually, someone dares approach, pressing trembling fingers to your feverish throat. Life pulses weakly there, yet barely. You remain trapped in agony, still suffering, still enduring. Death, though near, has cruelly withheld mercy yet again, prolonging your misery another painful day. The servant retreats, shaking his head slowly. You hear whispered words as consciousness fades again. He still lives. You drift between worlds, dreaming vaguely of freedom, release, oblivion. Your life continues, unbearably painful, each passing day draining more strength, diminishing your existence further. Yet you endure stubbornly, driven solely by instinct, pride, habit. Your nobility is meaningless, your title hollow, but still you linger, clinging tenaciously to existence despite overwhelming despair, endless torment, constant decay. Each breath becomes more difficult, each heartbeat weaker, yet you persist. You are a count, but your days consist solely of suffering, each moment bringing you closer to inevitable death. Each dawn arrives as punishment, prolonging misery unnecessarily. Yet still you awaken, still you survive another grim day, each one worse than before. You live, yet each day, slowly, painfully, irrevocably, you die. And as your life slips quietly away, you realize your title has always been meaningless, your noble birth utterly irrelevant. You were born only to suffer, to endure misery quietly, until finally granted peace in death. Until then, you remain, slowly dying day by day. And perhaps someday soon, your torment will finally end.